Brendan Bradford, CodeSports AU, and so much league to wrap up on the weekend. And look, I mean, I don't want to hack into the Super Rugby and things, mate, but look, I mean, just, I was watching over the weekend, I was, matches to watch and things, and here is dumb old Super Rugby on Easter weekend when everyone at some stage is thinking, okay, I just want to time out from the family and everyone else. We're on holiday, we're stuck in the house. I just want to sit down and watch a good game of code. So they have 4 buys. They let 4. Why wouldn't you put your very best teams, players, and games up on Easter weekend and try and capture an audience? Wouldn't that make marketing sense?
Exactly. Well, I mean, they don't do common sense at Super Rugby. I think we've spoken about this on that Super Round that they have in Melbourne, of all places. There doesn't seem to be much common sense. I mean, good. What is it? Easter Monday footy. Have a couple of games on Easter Monday. A couple of Super Rugby games.
Yeah.
The Eels Tigers is always a massive one in the NRL. You could change it up. You do a Thursday night game leading into the long weekend. There's so many options, so many ideas, like you say, people are just sitting around. It's not like they're busy over the weekend. They want something to watch.
Yeah.
Give it to them.
Give it to them, yeah. And just a bit of pre-planning, but no. So let's turn our attention to week 6, which is another fabulous round. And some of the big boys came out to flex. These are the notes that I got. I mean, the Storm against the Roosters, that was the Thursday night game. Panthers gave it a flex. Rabbitohs gave it a flex. Dolphins bouncing back. Very impressive win there. Not as impressive as the Canberra Raiders, who went to the Broncos, and I don't know how many people would have picked that. And in the end, the Warriors running out of juice. You can't start 10 to 12 behind every game and maintain it, can you? So let's look at the Raiders, though, first, mate. I mean, what a result that was.
Yeah, that's huge. And I've just realised that I forgot to put my tips in last week because I was going on holiday, which means I got all away teams. So I got the Raiders right.
Hello. Go on.
Good for me. Just out of the blue, and maybe I don't think the Broncos necessarily played badly. There were a few decisions and calls at the end that sort of 50-50s that helped the Raiders out. But look, especially after they got pumped by the Panthers and all the stuff with Ricky Stewart and Ivan Cleary during the week. Just good to see the Raiders just go out there, put in a gutsy performance up at Suncorp, tough place to play. Just pull one out of the bag, I suppose you could say.
Rabbits and the Panthers then. This is what we expected. Rabbits winning away at the Bulldogs, Panthers smacking the Sea Eagles. I mean, the two results that most people would have picked and most people would have got right. What does it tell you about those two teams?
Definitely the Rabbits sort of hitting their straps, I suppose. A little bit patchy over the first month or so, and they were hit. To be fair, they were hit by a forward pack injury in the first couple of weeks, and I actually thought they did pretty well to cover bringing guys in who, sort of bounce between reserve grade and first grade and inexperienced guys. But Good Friday afternoon. It's Homebush out there. It's such a good. It's a sort of a tradition game that they built up over the past decade, and the Rabbits and Latrell Mitchell particularly came out and really flexed their muscles. And you don't want to be, as much as say the Warriors, we love seeing them win at the start of the season, and the Dolphins too. You don't want to be hitting your best form in April, May. You need to build into it. And I think the Rabbitohs might start to show out from here, because that was I tipped them to win. Obviously, thought they'd win, but to put 50 on the Bulldogs, and that's pretty good. And there's a stat my good mate at the AAP, Scott Bailey, came up with, that there's no side that's won the comp after conceding 50 points that season. So the Bulldogs looks like they're out of the race.
That's out of the race.
Done.
3 teams from Queensland, or the coast, certainly in the top 6. What are we meant to make of the Dolphins and the Titans? What are we meant to make of these two teams?
Dolphins, but that was another gutsy, hard-fought sort of performance against the Cowboys, and sort of swings in momentum and wild sort of changes, and it's just another instance of them showing that they're here to play, that they're legit. I think pretty much, if not everyone, 90% of people wrote them off at the start of the season. Sort of, they'll be in the bottom 2, 3, or 4 And they've just shown week after week, they've had a hiccup here and there, and they've had to struggle with injury and suspension and stuff. But that win on the weekend is just proves that they're in it. I've got a few. Yeah, I'm starting to worry a little bit about the Cowboys. Some of the games they've lost, and I think they're down sort of 14th, 15th on the table.
15th at the moment.
Like there's a few. Yeah, and I saw Griffin Neems out for a couple of months. He's one of those quiet achievers up there. But yeah, a few alarm bells ringing in Townsville. As for the Titans, I have no idea. They're a team that can, pull out something like they did on the weekend. Okay, that was only against the Dragons, but they were down no Kieran Foran and Toby Sexton, who's sort of, again, another one bounced in and out of first grade and hasn't really set the world on fire. But he scores that late one and they beat the Dragons. But next week they could easily, in a couple of weeks, or if they play the Tigers next week, they could easily get pumped by the Tigers. Tipping the Titans is it's a nightmare scenario for your tipsters. So in short, I've no idea about the Gold Coast. They can show up and beat the Storm, but they could lose to the bottom place team.
Brendan Bradford, CodeSports AU's in the Tron at the moment. We'll get to the Knights and the Warriors in a second. The Storm and the Roosters, obviously, with Good Friday off, so we didn't have a chance to chat about that. So is this, the Melbourne Storm, it was only a couple of weeks ago I was suggesting to you, hang on a second, was this bubble bursting? Is this going to be the beginning of the end of this? But obviously not, clearly not.
Yeah, no, I think Cam Munster's coming back over the past couple of weeks. That's been huge. Xavier Coates just running amok there. This is probably one of the poorest performances I've seen the Roosters. They were like forward passes, knock-ons, just silly errors that you don't expect from the Roosters. And they haven't been great this year, to be fair. Even they beat the Warriors and they were pretty patchy that game. So I don't know what's going on with the Roosters at the moment. Something's just not quite clicking. They got a really good win against the Rabbitohs a few weeks back, and that was sort of what you expect from the Roosters, but they just haven't been able to maintain that. So it's going to be really interesting to see where how they travel over the next couple of months, because what are they? I think they're just inside the top 8 or thereabouts.
Seventh at the moment.
Seventh spot, but certainly not not playing like a finals bound team at the moment. So that's one to keep an eye on as well.
Look, I think, and I've been looking at the Warriors and the next fixtures. Obviously, North Queensland is coming up on the weekend, and then you've got the Storm, the Roosters, and the Panthers. I mean, bloody hell. So I'm starting to think, okay, let's look at it after 10 games, because the table is crunched up now. I mean, take out West Tigers at the end, and everyone else is only a win or so away. I know 5 or 6 games have been played, but I starting to think that we're going to settle it down in about 3 or 4 rounds and see who the real contenders are. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's spot on. And I think if we look back after 10 rounds, obviously you'll get a clearer idea, more of an average sort of view. But looking back then, I think that win over the Sharks, the win over the Cowboys, close sort of tough results, those are going to be so much more important, because you got a tough stretch over the next month. Some teams that you would expect to finish inside the top 4 and probably contend for the premiership at the end of the season. So it's going to be a good marker, see where they're really at against benchmark sides in the comp. And I think, again, sort of temper expectations in terms of what to expect over the next month. But also don't forget that they put in some gritty and good close comeback performances, but like you mentioned just before, you can't be going down 20 points every game and expecting to come back. They almost did it and thought, here we go again.
Yeah.
It's just too much every week. I think they've conceded within the first 5 minutes every game this season. So still a few things to work out for the Warriors, but like you say, let's have a look after 10 rounds and reassess. Yeah,
because I think Brendan Bradford is with us here. I think it's important for all Warriors fans that look. You're not going to win every game. You are going to get losses, and it's how you bounce back from a loss. It's really important that you don't have 3 or 4 of them in a row, that you've got to kind of get back on the horse straight away. And probably North Queensland aside, low on confidence, coming over from there to New Zealand. I mean, this is a game that has got to be won. But, at the moment, 4 wins out of 6. I mean, how many people would have expected that? Everyone would have wanted it, but I don't know how many people would have actually genuinely thought that was possible at the start of the season. The other teams I'm looking at, the Eels, mate. Okay, they've only won 2 out of their 6. Have you seen enough from that side? They've had close losses, we know that. Have you seen enough against West Tigers that would suggest to you that they are going to climb the table?
I think if you, yeah, I did, and if you take out the last sort of 15 minutes, where like realistically they had the game in the bag, and yeah, the Tigers scored a couple of late tries and made it look half respectable, and the Tigers put it a pretty good effort after a tough week from them. But it was like Tigers Bulldogs about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where the Bulldogs were up by about 20 something, and then just sort of, all right, last 10, 15
Yeah,
minutes
garbage time
switched off
tries.
at the
Yeah,
Tigers. Yeah. So I think I've said it the whole time. I'm still pretty confident in the Eels. They'll come good. They'll start winning those close games, and they'll be there. They'll be in the top 8 by the end of the season. It might, like similar to the Warriors in games, maybe they've left themselves too much to do, and over a long season, it might start to tell at the end of the year. We'll see how that goes, but I'm pretty confident that the Eels they'll be there come sort of August, September.
Brendan, 2 things to wrap it up with, and I've saw a lot of Twitter talk about Blocker Roach and some of his comments and things. When that try got ruled out, I hated when rugby and league rule out on the technicalities. It's almost like let the game play and let it be. So that offside or running ahead of the marker, I mean, it's complicated, but was that try should have been ruled out for the Warriors where Curran was?
Yeah, it's like spot on. Like it's a technicality. Like did it influence the play at all? Is it like would the try not have counted if he was half a meter one way or the other? Probably not. But letter of the law type thing. I suppose you got to give it. I hate it as well. Like I think there should be a bit more common sense. But once you start sort of going into that, you have different guys refereeing and officiating different games, different things on week to week, and it gets there's a lot of grey. So I think as much as it's sort of painful and you hate those sort of like just those fine tooth comb things, I think you got to keep it black and white as much as possible. But yeah, like who knows what would have happened if it counted, if it went the other way. But yeah, look, I hate it as well. But letter of the law, I think they did get it right in the end.